Welcome to the Coven Chat.
Thank you for joining me here at the Maiden Circle Coven Chat podcast, where we talk all things witchy, spiritual, and human.
Hello, merry meet, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Coven Chat. Thank you so much for being here. Today's episode comes after a 3-week break, so if you have been listening to this in real time, I thank you for sticking with me, and I apologize for taking such a long break. If you've been following me on any of my other socials, then you may already know why that break had to happen. But if not, I'll tell you that my mother has experienced a severe health crisis, and we are still in the midst of that. I also had a situation with one of my pets, which we are also still dealing with. And so I needed to give myself a break on a lot of the things that I was doing. Mentally and emotionally, everything just sort of seemed very dark and very heavy. I found myself falling into my sadness, into my emotions, into heartbreak. The health issue with my mother is the scariest thing I've ever experienced with her. I've always said that an aneurysm was one of my biggest fears because it could happen at any time. It could happen to anybody. It is especially likely to happen to stressed people, and even more likely to happen if you've already had health issues, like a stroke, which my mom did have last year. So at the time of recording this episode, my mother is in a coma, and she has been for almost a full month. So you might think it's a bit strange, the topic of today's episode, but it's something that's been on my mind throughout this entire experience. And so, of course, I'm here to talk to you about it. Before we get into our fun fact, I'd like to share with you a poem. It's actually an evocation. In Maiden Circle's Coven Path course, we discuss evocations and invocations, and one of the evocations that I share is one that I wrote myself. Ultimately, it's about balance, and it is about being both light and dark. It is about being all that we are and all that is. It is evoking divinity. It is evoking balance. It is evoking power. It's one of the passages that I read whenever I open my Book of Shadows, as that is my ritual. I have about 6 or 7 passages that I have to read the first time I open my Book of Shadows in a 24-hour period, and this is a part of that. So I do hope you enjoy it. My students seem to like it. This is Evocation, written by me. I am I. I am the change. I am truth. I am the light. I am the mother and the daughter. I am the teacher and the student. I am the night and the day. I am the moon and the sun. I am she that has always been. I am she that will always be. I am the way of love. I am the shadows. I am the death crone and naked infant. I am the fire and the ash. I am the dirt and the worm. I am the master and slave. I am she and I am thee. I am she and she is me. I am truth. I am the change. I am I. I do hope you enjoyed that. Let's move on to our fun fact of the day.
Pagan fun fact. Here's your fun facts now.
So for today's fun fact, I'd like to talk about another Greek myth or another Greek thing. I do tend to default to Greek mythology just because I had a huge interest in it when I was younger. A lot of our society shows interest in it as well. I'm sharing more of a story than a fun fact today. And the reason I have decided on this particular topic is because it keeps coming up. I was looking for something that would be in relation to happiness, and I was struggling to find a fun fact. And then one of the many cartoons that I watch mentioned this, and I realized that it's mentioned all the time. It's mentioned very often. You will hear people say things like, don't fly too close to the sun, to discourage people or warn people against getting a big head, against going beyond their means. And I realized that the story of Icarus has a huge hold on our societal consciousness. At least when it comes to American society, I obviously can't speak for any other society. Of course, if you don't know the story of Icarus, Icarus was the son of a craftsman, Daedalus, who worked in Crete for the king Minos. Daedalus was known for his mastery of pretty much any medium. He could woodwork, he could work with clay, he could work with needle and thread, any crafts that you needed done, he could do. He was known as a sculptor and was the chosen craftsman of the king. There are quite a few myths about Daedalus, but in the story of Daedalus and Icarus, it's said that he got tired of being in Crete and he wanted to escape. He wanted to leave, but the king wouldn't let him go. He was, of course, his master craftsman, one of the best builders in his kingdom, a treasure. And so Daedalus made a plan to escape the king. He studied the way birds fly and created a device to allow him to take flight. He gathered feathers and sewed them together with thread and wax. He made a set for both himself and for his son, Icarus. Before their flight, he explained how to use the feathers and warned Icarus. His warning, written by Ovid, reads as, "Let me warn you, Icarus, to take the middle way, in case the moisture weighs down your wings, if you fly too low, or if you go too high, the sun scorches them. Travel between the extremes, and I order you not to aim towards Boots the herdsman, or Helis, the great bear, or towards the drawn sword of Orion. Take the course I show you." Daedalus, of course, was very serious about his warnings, but it didn't seem that Icarus took them seriously. Daedalus gave his son a kiss, and he took to the sky, with Icarus following behind him. They were able to escape Crete and escape the king, but until they landed, they weren't exactly safe. As they got closer to their destination, Icarus began to feel invincible. He was elated by the power of flight. He was so excited that he wanted to go higher and higher. He ignored his father's warning, and he flew. He flew so close to the sun that his wings began to scorch, and the wax helping hold them together melted. So then Icarus fell. He tried flapping his wings, but his wings were no more. He screamed for his father, and his father screamed for him, but it was no use. He fell into the sea, and that sea became known as the Icarian Sea. Eventually, Daedalus did find his body floating amongst feathers. He took him and buried him on an island, which became named Icaria, and that's essentially how Icarus' story ends. I wanted to share this story in large part because of Daedalus' warning when he tells Icarus to avoid the extremes, not to go too high and not to go too low. I think that directly parallels my view on happiness, at least on the surface level, and I'll get into that right now in today's musing. So that's your fun fact. Let's move on. In today's episode, we are talking about happiness, more specifically, the seemingly endless pursuit of happiness, and my thoughts on that. So as I mentioned in the intro, I've been dealing with a lot of heavy stuff. There have been health issues galore, and there is a bunch of things that I don't publicly speak on. Some things that I have been facing and dealing with for years at this point. There are some things that I may have alluded to in other episodes that I have faced since childhood. Things I share with only trusted confidants. Pains and traumas and various disappointments. If you know me, you know that I have experienced things like domestic abuse, sexual assault, homelessness. I am the child of an addict whose life, as I am recording this, is hanging by a thread. I bounced around from home to home as a kid. Most of the adults in my life when I was younger were drunks or addicts, had regular violent encounters. My mom older sister, aunts and uncles were in and out of jail, and I was there, sometimes forced to take care of the children, my sister's children, my own younger sibling, neighborhood kids, while their parents were out with mine. Once, at my residential school, my mother came to visit, and I don't know what happened or what she said, but when she left, I went back to my dorm room. I found a huge bag of clothes, gifts, school supplies, donated to me. And all I could think was they saw what my life was. They being someone at my school, because it was all anonymous. They saw what my life was, and they pitied me. And quite often when I speak on my past, that's the response I get. Pity. Sadness. There's a look that comes across people's faces. And almost always, they act impressed with who I've become now. Because who I am now is what I would consider a very happy person. I wasn't always, of course. During those years, I was angsty and depressed. I was diagnosed with depressive bipolar. I was on and off medications. I was in and out of therapy, group therapy, and I spent a few weeks in a psychiatric hospital one Christmas, right after graduating high school, because I was very, very unhappy. Of course, the thing I remember most about that time in the hospital isn't how unhappy I was. I remember the peace. I remember the daily group therapy when we could just talk to each other. I remember having dedicated time each day to do crafts and art. I remember during free time, they would often let me choose the music on the radio. I remember at nights, I could read myself to sleep using one of the books that they offered me. I remember it being one of the most peaceful times of my life. And I think it was then that I learned how to find happiness within myself. Of course, the lesson wasn't solid. I was a teenager. I had only just graduated high school. So there was still a long, long process ahead of me. But I think that's when the seeds were planted. Because when I got out of that hospital in December of 2007, the next week was Christmas. And I spent Christmas Eve alone in my grandmother's apartment. I don't remember where she was, but I remember sitting in the dark living room. I remember standing up and there was this full-length mirror on the door. And I stood in front of the mirror and I said, well, at least I can think that I'm pretty. And in that way, I can still love myself. And I know it sounds very shallow now, but at that time, any thread of self-love, any thread of personal positivity felt like a lifeline. The next day, Christmas Day, I had been invited by someone I maybe had met once, a stranger, to his church. And it was this basement church in this shady-looking building full of African people, as in families who had moved to Chicago from Africa. And at that time, I had moved to Chicago from Mississippi. I didn't have that kind of culture available to me growing up. And I was so thrilled to be there. I loved the way they dressed. I loved the music that they played. I loved their accents. And they all embraced me. They all took me in. Afterwards, there was food. And none of them knew that I had just gotten out of psych hospital. In my mind, I'm thinking, none of you know. I just did a stint in the loony bin. Of course, as years passed, my bipolar diagnosis showed itself to be very true. I went back and forth into depression. My manic episodes were few and far in between, but depression I knew well. Depression became a comfort zone at times, practically a personality. Yet through all of that, I always came back to joy. I always found something to laugh about. I always found something that brought me hope and made me feel excited. And then one day, I realized that even on my worst days, I could still laugh at dumb jokes. I could still smile about the things that were worth smiling for. I could indulge in things that had broken my heart. I could let my heart break and know that those smiles would return, that laughter would return, that joy would return. In fact, that joy never truly left. Perhaps I felt things on top of it. Perhaps I focused on feelings other than joy. But the joy existed and exists within me at all times. I realized that there is no need to pursue happiness. There is no need to chase it, to hunt it down, to try to force it into being. Because it is when it is. It exists within me at all times. So that even on my hardest days, even at a time like now, I know that joy is my natural state. I know that I have so much to be grateful for, even when it's so very difficult to see through the fog of darkness. And there is a lot of darkness in the world, not just in my personal life. There are situations with our country, with the danger that the children are put into, and I of course still have my problems. Life isn't perfect. Life isn't meant to be perfect. It's not The Sims. And yet I know that happiness is there for me. It isn't in the next job. It isn't in the next relationship. It isn't in the next cheesecake, although that one might be debatable. It's simply within me, and I can find it whenever I need it. I can access it whenever I need it. And I may use triggers to help awaken it. I may watch stand-up comedy so that I can start laughing, but that laughter is still coming from within me. I'm still allowing myself to enjoy something funny, because I could just as easily not see humor in anything when things are dark. I could just as easily take offense at everything that flies in the face of my struggles. I could see someone enjoying something that I don't have, and I could allow myself to feel jealousy. But instead, I can choose to feel hope. I can choose to feel excitement. If someone has something that I don't have, that I desire, then I can be glad for that desire. And I can hope that that comes into my life, or something better for me. Happiness is a choice. I've said it for years. You can be happy whenever you want. You can live in happiness. You can exist as a happy being. You don't need to pursue it. You don't need to chase it. When it isn't at the forefront of your feelings, that doesn't mean you're an unhappy person. And it doesn't mean you'll never have happiness again. We all have failures. We all have heartaches. We all lose sometimes. We all suffer in many ways. And if we didn't, I don't think we'd be as aware of the better times. One of my most favorite quotes is from Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods. It's the baker's wife singing, "If life were only moments, even now and then a bad one. But if life were only moments, then you'd never know you had one." And that quote resonated with me the very first time I heard it, because that's how I saw happiness. If life was only happy, just happiness, then would we even know what happiness is? If we never experience failure, how would we define success? So even though I could easily say sadness exists within me just as much as happiness does, even that doesn't make me sad, because that tells me I am balanced. I am able to feel the full range of my emotions when I need to feel them. I'm able to break down in pain if I am filled with pain, but none of it makes me want to give up anymore. And I do still have moments where I get a little close, and every time I'm able to go back and look at those moments, ask myself what I was feeling, what I was experiencing at that time, and I move through these moments rather quickly. I don't hold on to the negative emotions for very long, not because I'm trying to push them away, but simply because I let them do their thing. I let them do what they have to do, while making sure that I'm taking care of myself. Because I know that that happiness still exists within me, that it will return, that I will feel it, that I will be elated again, that I will laugh again, that I will smile again. So I know that in those times when I am unable to laugh and smile, I need to be taking care of myself, not adding to the pain, not hurting myself, not being self-destructive, not being reckless with myself, as I used to do, nurturing myself through these things, bandaging my wounds, staying hydrated, resting, confronting my feelings and my fears honestly, so that they're not overwhelming me and I'm not avoiding them, so that they can't come back and bite me in the ass later. During these dark times, I don't have to go searching for happiness. I just have to make sure that I am healthy enough for when it shows itself again, when it emerges from me again. I have to make sure that I remain balanced and that I continue to show love to myself and to those around me and to my environment, so that when that joy returns, it has that much more to fuel it. I can be happy I feel better, and I can be happy that I loved myself enough to let myself feel bad and to take care of myself until I felt better again. I rarely ever go to extremes at this point. Never say never, because emotions do what they do, but I don't get too excited, too manic, to the point where I am reckless, putting myself in danger, and I don't get so lost in despair that I harm myself, even if I get so close that I feel heaviness and darkness, and I start to question even my own beliefs. I choose to take care of myself through that, and I choose to know that, hey, I've been in worse. I've felt worse, and so I can feel better. For me, there is no pursuit of happiness. For me, happiness just is. She comes when she comes. And perhaps I equate happiness to love, and I equate love to God, and perhaps that's why I'm saying she, because my God tends to take form in the feminine. And perhaps it does all come back to love itself, because I love myself enough to know that I'll make it through the darker times, to allow myself to experience the light times with openness and without fear, without always worrying that the other shoe will drop. And I am a work in progress, so it's not 100%. There's still that voice inside of me that comes from all those years of the other shoe dropping. Anytime I felt good, that morning, if I felt really good when I was younger, I would think, oh, I know something's going to happen tonight. I know this is going to go bad. And it would happen. And now, I wonder, maybe I was creating this. Maybe I was manifesting this. Because every time something good was happening, I told myself that it wasn't going to last. Or that I didn't deserve it. Or that something bad was going to have to happen to balance it out. Whereas now, if I'm happy, then I'm just happy. I'm just having a good time. And if something does happen, I no longer think, I knew it, it was going to happen. I think, oh, this sucks. I'm not having a good time. I can enjoy the moments, even now and then the bad ones. And I'm very glad for all the boring times in between, because when I'm bored, I'm still content. And when I'm content, that means I still feel my happiness. And when I don't feel my happiness, I've already explained how I deal with that. I just know it's there. I just know it's coming back. I just know as long as I'm here, as long as I have something to offer in the way of breath, as long as I can breathe carbon monoxide for the trees, as long as I can feel sun on my face, as long as I can make an animal or child or another person feel safe, then I am not lost. And I hope you can find that within yourself. I hope you can connect with the happiness that is inherent within you, so that even when you're not sensing or feeling it, you know it's right around the corner. You know how to reach in and grab it if you must. You know you, and you love you, and you take care of you because you deserve it. And you don't chase the elation that we call happiness. You don't have to chase the big joy, the big high of happiness. I hope you just have that nugget inside of you, that seed inside of you to pull you through even the darkest moments. I hope that for everybody. Obviously, I can't tell you what to think and how to approach happiness. That's just my way of doing it. If you'd like to tell me your way of doing it, or simply your thoughts on what happiness is, please feel free to write to me, comment on whatever platform you're listening. I would absolutely love to hear from you. But I think that's all from me, so let's go ahead and get into this episode's reading. And remember, I love you. In today's reading, we are using the Sacred Rebel Oracle, the Soul Healing Oracle, and the Universe Has Your Back Oracle. We'll start with the Sacred Rebel. Our first card is Heaven Sent, number 33. Then we have number 2, Inner Trust. And on the bottom of the deck, we have number 34, In the World, Not of the World. Heaven sent represents a divine message being sent to you. There is something that you know, especially with inner trust here. There's something you're aware of. And I think with today's topic, this is something within you that is heaven sent. It's a gift. It is a knowing. It is a knowledge that you have. It is something you're able to offer to the world that only you can offer within the world, not of the world. It's saying that you have something very spiritual, very spiritually divine about you, and that you can trust that whatever this is, it's going to bring you some healing. So with the Soul Healing Oracle, we have number 41, I see you, soulmates, partnership, mutual understanding. Number 38, the man, masculine energy, mature, authoritative. Number 47, whispers from the deep, spiritual downloads, psychic knowledge, knowing the unknown. And number 22, the shadows of the soul, shadow work, secrets, hidden truths. On the bottom of the deck, we have number 1, soul healing, soul growth, self-care, healing energy. So for some of you, you may just be connecting with a masculine being, but with our overall message so far, it feels like this is your higher self, your higher soul, seeing the truth of you. This is you knowing who you are. This is you knowing what your magic is, knowing how powerful you are, and using that power to create something, whether that's something physical like art, or starting a business, writing a book, or creating a family, creating an environment, a community of people who care for each other and take care of each other. Creating that seed of happiness I was talking about within yourself. Building something beautiful for yourself. With spiritual downloads and secrets, hidden truths, shadow work, I do think this is more about your healing. This is about you coming into alignment with yourself. This is about you understanding yourself on a deeper level and taking that understanding to live intentionally. So instead of just letting life happen to you, you're making choices for the direction you want to go. You're facing your own shadows, and you're getting in touch with that light that is within you, that is divine, that heaven-sent light. I'm noticing inner trust and spiritual downloads, knowing the unknown, and shadow work. All of this feels very internal. It feels very much like you're seeking the light that's within you, and you're using that light to heal yourself through something. So we have quite a few cards from The Universe Has Your Back. First is, the moment I embrace my peace within and surrender the outcome is the moment that the universe can truly get to work. Right? This is finding peace within yourself. Again, like I said, instead of letting life happen to you, you're living intentionally, and you're allowing yourself to be whatever it is that's true. You're allowing yourself to embrace the light that is inside of you. Then we have energy flows where my intention goes. Again, focusing on your happiness, taking this healing and using it, or taking this shadow work and this inner knowing and using it to actively heal yourself. Then we have true healing occurs when I give myself permission to feel whatever feelings live below the triggers. I shuffled. You didn't see me, but I swear I did. But this is exactly what I was saying, about feeling your feelings, letting them flow through you as they necessarily have to, but knowing that what's inside of you, that joy inside of you, won't go away. Being anchored within yourself, knowing yourself well enough to be able to let these things happen. Then we have, thank you, universe, for helping me see beyond the limits of fear. Thank you for expanding my perceptions so that I can see what is of the highest good. So this is all about, obviously, a perception shift. This is about seeing life, instead of seeing, like I said earlier, seeing something that could make you jealous, seeing it with the eyes of hope instead of negativity. This is changing your perception so that, again, you're aware of the happiness that's within you, so that you're anchored, so that you're able to heal instead of holding on to the wounds. Then we have, my happiness is a direct reflection of my level of faith in the universe. So, again, all about finding that, trusting that happiness is there, knowing that it's there, knowing that even when things are dark, there is light, and that you're never going to be left alone. We started with heaven sent, so this is telling me that you are divinely being touched, you are being divinely guided. Then we have, I find a deeper meaning and personal growth amid the discomfort. So again, all those dark things that happen, you can learn from them. And it doesn't mean you'll never have happiness again. It simply is part of the cycle. And finally, we have, my faith has the power to turn trauma into healing, conflict into growth, and fear into love. Your faith in yourself, your faith in the divine, your faith in the light, your faith in love has that power to change all those dark, horrible things that you may experience into something beautiful. And on the bottom of the deck, when I think I've surrendered, I surrender more. So we all still have a journey. This is something you may already be going through. This is a healing journey you're on. And it's not over. And it'll never be completely over because life exists in cycles. But you are so divinely guided. You are so divinely touched. This divine light, this joy, this safety, this love, it is inside of you. And once you see it, once you understand yourself clearly, once you connect with your higher self and connect with the divine and trust that you are in a perfect partnership with the divine, you're going to be able to take that energy and put it into healing. And your active healing is going to radiate out and provide healing for those around you. It's just naturally going to happen. So that is a really, truly beautiful message. I wish you all the best. I wish you so much love and so many blessings. Thank you so much for listening, and I will speak to you next time. Again, I wish you all the love in the world and all the happiness. Bye now.